What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Miltrick Media. I am here with funk soul duo Desperate Electric, all the way from Montana. How's it going, guys? Thank you for being here.
It's going great. Thanks for having us, boss.
Yeah, no problem. So, you guys recently just came off a tour. So, let's talk about that. What was that tour like? Let's tell the audience what went down. How was that tour? Where'd you guys go from? Where'd you guys start playing?
Well, we're from Montana, so
Mhm.
we kind of did a tour kickoff in our hometown, and then we did 6 weeks on the road, and we went through North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Ohio. I mean, basically just shot all the way to the East Coast, played shows the whole way, played shows down the East Coast, played in Boston and Philly, Baltimore, Virginia, and then started heading back. And we got home on Sunday.
That's awesome. Wow. So, is that your first time you guys ever visited? Is that the first time you guys ever visited the East Coast?
Basically, that was the second time. So we've done almost that exact loop one other time back in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. So, a 6 week run. I've never been on tour. I've always wanted to. So, what is tour like?
It's wild. It's so fun, and you meet so many people, and it's so cool to explore places that you've never been, and just like, kind of see it from the side of like you're in a music venue and you're really meeting like the community and not really doing touristy things.
Yeah.
It's also exhausting. And it's really, I mean, you get the whole gamut, you get a little of everything.
Yeah. What is your favorite part about touring?
I think for us, for a lot of musicians, the performance itself, and just getting to play our music in front of entirely new people every night.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
especially the last 2 years, how like live performance wasn't around, but so grateful that it's back. How much did you guys miss performing music in the last 2 years?
oh my god, yeah. There's
Uh,
not words.
no, no.
I took on like 3 new side hustles during the
We just
pandemic.
learned a lot of new
I was just
skills.
like,
'Cause we were so bored.
I got a lot of energy and it needs somewhere to go.
That was me too. Yeah, I was just going from side hustle to side hustle, trying to just keep myself busy. That was exactly me as well. It's
Mhm.
wild. It's wild. So you released your first studio recording in 2019. Let's go all the way back to the beginning of Desperate Electric. When did this project first start?
Well, we've been through a couple different iterations. Desperate Electric really started in the summer of 2019. However, Ben and I, we used to be called Dash. We had a different name. And that project, which I mean, we still play some of those songs. That was Ben and I as the main songwriters, was more of like a four-piece soul rock band.
Hmm.
Definitely had more of that like rock band feel. And we started that project together in 2018. And we recorded an album. We went on a couple little tours, and
We basically like went sprinting out of the gates and pulled a hamstring. Basically,
yeah,
it
yeah.
was
There you
like,
go. And the hamstring is one of the worst muscles to pull. It sucks, that rehabilitation process.
oh god, yeah, yeah, and it really that's I just thought of that, but that's the best way to describe what happened to
Yeah.
us. Like we had a four-piece band. We tried to communicate from the get-go. It's like, guys, we're gonna hit it so hard. Like, let's do this. And like we booked tours, and everyone loves the idea of the full send on being a musician, but like the logistics of it are very challenging.
Yeah, the reality is that it's really hard, and
I mean, the band is not going to make enough money to support four people for like probably like 10 years,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to really
So-
want to do it and be able to, reckon with the fact that you're not going to, be rich. I mean, or anything of the sort anytime soon. It's not like there's not a straight path to superstardom or anything like that. And it's really hard. I mean, you're in the van for like 4 to 8 hours every day. You're not getting a lot of sleep. You're sleeping on couches and floors and somebody's grandmother's weird guest room with 400 dolls in it or something. Like, you're doing some crazy stuff. And I think a lot of people don't, they do that and they're like, oh God, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I mean, even me, like, I was like, I don't know what I thought it was going to be, but it wasn't this.
Yeah.
You just have to really want it.
Mm.
It is, yeah. Some people may not know, But it sounds like you two, especially, you're just going all in. And yeah, it's sometimes hard to keep an ensemble together, a group together, because it is. It's just a grind from the get go, and you got to give your whole life to it. Basically, like you
Yeah,
said, exactly.
absolutely.
Like you said, yeah, being in a band, it could take off after a couple of years, or it may take a decade. And it
Mhm.
is, it causes, you need a lot of resilience, 100%.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
100%.
absolutely. And that's going back to my hamstring metaphor. Like we had the band, and that was Dash. We tried to tour, sprint out, get it all done. Members started dropping. We had tours booked. We're trying to replace members on tour.
Yeah.
And so eventually, I've always been a producer. So we're like, all right, let's lean into that. So
Yeah.
let's take kind of our rock soul energy. We're going to play with beats and we're going to do just the two of us. And looking back, that's one of the best decisions we made because we can really focus on committing ourselves to the craft and to the hustle. And, that's just better longevity for us, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's awesome how you talked about that. Yeah. So basically, it sounds like the first iteration, you were in a band called Dash. Then it became Desperate Electric, the two of you, a power duo. So basically, talk a lot about adapting the music industry and adapting as musicians. It sounds like you two just realized you saw the situation in front of you and you just realized, you know what? We got to change. We got to evolve in order to push it forward. So, in terms of
Yep.
your live show and your live setup, so do you have session musicians or backing musicians when you perform, or is it just the two of you with, let's say, some added production?
It's
Yep.
just the two of us. So we both sing, and I play bass, and Ben plays guitar and keyboard at our live show. Like he'll switch between the two,
Mhm.
and then Ben and I mean, we both, do some of the production. Ben does most of the production, and all of our drums and everything like that. And so we use like essentially backing tracks with like all the drum layers, some added synth layers, sometimes some backup vocals. And that's our live show. It's just the two of us.
Yeah, that's awesome. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
going back to being in a band, so advice to new bands, up and coming bands, what is your advice to them in order to move forward? Make sure you're always on the same page. What advice do you have to new and young bands in order to keep the peace and just to stay a cohesive unit?
Communication, honest communication is a big one.
Yeah. I don't know if there's like one single piece of advice. I mean, I think like it's also okay to realize that you don't want to do something, like
Mhm.
to give it an honest shot and be like, okay, this is not actually what I want to do. And I'm going to step away, and realizing that instead of maybe pushing through something that you don't like because you feel like you need to, or you don't want to be like a quitter. I think some of the best things that happened to us were people not continuing with our band because they knew they couldn't like dedicate the time or the energy to it. But also, yeah, I mean, with a band, and that leads back to like just communicate, communicate your
Mhm.
needs, really be honest with yourself about what you want and the expectations you have for your life. And then also just like make sure it's always fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun is important.
It
Yeah, because
is.
it gets really really tricky when you're trying to, because music is something that's so sacred to most of the people who make it. Trying to monetize that, it can get really cloudy. You can really kind of lose your way.
Mhm.
And I've learned to just be more accepting and understanding of people who are like, I can't do it like this. This is not how it makes sense for me.
It's
Like,
not for everybody, and
yeah.
Yeah.
that's okay, and it shouldn't be. And we haven't always had fun doing it, and we've had to like work on getting back to the root of like we want this. We love making music. That's like why we do this, and it should be fun.
Yeah, and that sounds like a great headspace and a great mindset to be in. What you just mentioned. Yeah, being in a band, one of the most important things is communication and having fun, of course. That's the beauty of it. You want to have fun, you want to love what you're doing. But yeah, those are some great points. So then, even with Desperate Electric, the duo, what are your biggest musical influences?
Oh God.
I recently decided on three for me.
Yeah, Ben's better
Let's
at this
start with
question.
that. So
Yeah.
I've got, and they're in chronological order. So Paul McCartney, I just think the guy's a visionary. And Kurt Cobain actually had a pretty big rock and roll grunge phase in there. And then more recently, Frank Ocean.
There you go. That's a cool trio. That's a unique combination. And then what about
I
you?
feel like that. Yeah. Katie, what do you
Oh
think?
God. I don't know. So before I started like playing and singing in bands, my entire background was like classical music.
Hmm.
I did that all through high school and college, studied classical voice, and performance in that realm. So I would like that actually has a pretty big influence on, I guess at least my vocal style. I grew up in Montana. I grew up listening to like classic rock and country music. So, I mean, whether I like it or not, that's probably a pretty big influence.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I don't know, but I love all music, obviously. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I love it all. So I
No,
can't
that's
really,
awesome.
that's like the hardest question for me.
What was it like growing up in Montana? What's that like? I'm a long way away from New York, but I want to travel to so many places in the United States. It's so vast, the
Yeah.
U.S. There's so many places to visit. What is it like growing up in Montana?
Um, I mean, I love Montana. I mean, I still live here. Like
I mean, we don't really want to live anywhere
no,
else.
we don't want to live anywhere else. I've lived most of my life here. It's really, I think the experience can like vary pretty differently depending on kind of where in Montana you grew up. Montana's a huge state.
Yeah.
And so it kind of has like different little like subcultures in Montana. I grew up rodeoing in rural Montana.
Like,
For a long time, I had like 30 kids in my whole high school class.
Oh wow, I had 720 in my graduating class.
Yeah, that is like
Yeah.
mine. I had 34. So
Each class had 35 kids. It was like, and we were
yeah.
cramped in these little rooms. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, we had 34 kids total in my graduating class, in the small town I lived in for a lot of high school. And it's definitely, I think it really shaped me in a lot of ways, um, because there's not a lot to do. I mean, there's like not a lot of, I mean, we lived kind of, not close to really anything. And
Yeah.
there was only a handful of like sports you could do. And then there weren't really other things to do. Like basically everybody played the sports. And if you didn't do that, you were kind of just left out because there
Hmm.
weren't really other extracurriculars. I did band and choir, but beyond that, and I mean, I rodeoed, which that was not like school affiliated. That was just like a thing you could do.
Yeah.
Um, but it's definitely, there's like an element of isolation to it that I think makes you pretty resilient. There's not always somebody to hang out with or something to do. But there's always something to do in the way of like work or chores or
Yeah.
like child labor.
Yeah.
Lots of character building.
Yeah, lots of character building. Stuff like that. Not always like, I mean, I lived like several miles from all of my friends, and I
Yeah.
didn't like, you couldn't walk to anybody. You couldn't like ride a bike to somebody else's house.
Yeah, it's not like going to
So
a bodega down the block in Brooklyn or Queens, stuff like that. Yeah, it's that more
No.
more sparse, I can
No,
imagine,
no,
right? More
you're
spread
like-
out.
until you can drive, you're just like at home
Yeah.
at the mercy of your parents,
Hanging
like,
out, yeah.
Just getting real angsty listening to Paramore and stuff,
yeah.
There you go. Listen, there you go.
So it's definitely, I don't know. I loved it. I mean, I love the outdoors. I think, I mean, it's so like geographically beautiful here, but it's definitely like interesting to even hear, like there's other places in Montana, people like grew up in the cities, the bigger towns, and their experience was vastly different from mine just because like I didn't have the luxury of like living 5 minutes from a friend's house.
Yeah.
So
I got
No,
you.
I grew up in northern Idaho, so it was still like a remote Rocky Mountain thing, but I lived in what would be considered a bigger town, and it was kind of like a little hippie town.
Hmm.
So I had though it wasn't very far from where Katie grew up, a fairly different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like everyone I knew played like, I mean, I feel like my town loves like the Grateful Dead. There's a big jazz festival there. Like just like music is life there, and everyone just like holds hands and sings, and
Yeah.
like it's as I've traveled more, I'm like that. Like I love my hometown. It's like it's so nice. It's almost too nice. It's just everyone just loves everyone, and it's.
I got you. That's cool though. Well, I love talking with music artists about their writing and production process. So you first released your first studio recording in 2019, and even now you're recently coming off the release of your brand new single, Karaoke, right? So let's talk about before Desperate Electric heads into the studio. How long is the pre-production process for you two when writing a song and getting ready for the studio?
It definitely varies.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we'll like know there's some studio time coming up. It's like, all right, let's like focus on creating right now. But honestly, more so than that, probably like the songs just hit you when they hit you. So like basically from whatever period, the period of time starts from when we finish the last recording process to just like when the next one is, and like song ideas just crop up in there and we hang on to the ones we like, we flush them out. So then when we get in the studio, we probably got 10 to 15 ideas. We're like, okay, these are our high priority ideas. Let's get these down in the studio, see how they start feeling. Occasionally, like we get some down in the studio and it's like, all right, maybe not with this one. We'll try something else.
Yeah.
It just hits us pretty randomly.
Yeah. And then sometimes we like just go into the studio and just like, make something up, like I don't know that we have like a crazy pre-production process.
No,
So
I feel like we like the variation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you guys do a lot of writing beforehand when it's the two of you in a room, or do you also book studio time and you kind of just see where the session goes? Do you come up with also a lot of the music on the spot in the studio?
Probably 50-50. And we have a studio in our house. That was like our
Oh, cool.
quarantine project. We built a pretty big studio operation in our house. So that's really nice to have at our disposal, and we can really just.
This definitely changed the process.
Yeah, because
before we would book studio times, like, all right, we got to show correct. Like these are the ideas.
Yeah.
They have to work because we want this many songs.
Yeah.
So in that way, it was almost limiting having to book it. But now that we've built ourselves an adequate facility, it's really opened up the doors to like whatever process can work.
Yeah.
So you do have your own home studio. So you do a lot of writing and recording at home. How important do you think that is for artists in 2022 to take control of the production process and have some home studio equipment? How important do you think that is to up and coming artists?
I'd say it's only getting more important. Like,
Yeah.
I agree.
and it's just in this day and age, like you used to just like play an instrument and then, you like in the 70s, you just play an instrument, you go, there's like one studio in a city. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
so it's just rare just to have the technology. But now that it's so common, it's like, I feel like as an artist, you don't need, but it's good to have like an idea of even the mixing and the production and the post-production.
Yeah.
Because it's all so relevant now. And it's,
plus then you can really have like, as much creative freedom as you want. You can really be like self-reliant. You don't need, and you're not like, music is a creative process and some days you're just not feeling it. Like,
yeah,
some days you're like, my brain doesn't want to do that today and I'm not feeling it and I'm not going to do my best work. And when you're paying for studio time, that can be just, you can't do that. You have to do it. Even if you're not feeling amazing or you're like beating your head against a wall, like, especially when you're like,
I remember our 2019 session, like Katie got sick halfway through our 2-week studio time.
Yep.
So we just like, there's vocals that Katie will listen back to. She's like, oh, I sound sick. Like,
yeah.
Stuff,
we didn't have, we had that studio booked for 2 weeks and that was the time we had to record our album. Mm-hmm. And there was no other, that was it. We had to just do it then.
Yeah.
And so having the flexibility to like have our own studio and be in complete control of that, I think has been a total game changer and enhanced the quality of the music we're putting out and the recordings we're putting out because we have kind of unlimited time to put into them.
Yeah. And your music has been featured in numerous editorial outlets like Buzz Music and Indie Pulse, correct? Was it Indie Pulse was one of the outlets? How have you secured press features as an independent band?
We have done it kind of every way you can possibly think of. We have cold emailed people, like just, with basically like a press release and please feature us. We have paid like a PR agency. We have used like online submission like platforms, both paid and unpaid. We've kind of done a little of everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, to other up and coming artists and independent artists, what advice do you have to them in terms of if they're trying to secure press releases? What do you think is the best
Um,
way to go about it and contact these outlets?
I think the best thing you should do, because I think a lot of I don't think all of that was worth it. I think the best thing you can do is reach out, go local. Go with
Mhm.
the publications in your region, in your city. Reach out to them. They're going to be more interested in you because you live there and they can
Yeah.
follow you. They can become a little bit more invested in your journey. Also, like they probably won't charge you, and then you're also building a rapport with those people. I think that has been the press that's made the biggest impact for us, and kind of gone the furthest, um, just in terms, yeah, like stuff that's I guess we've seen any impact from. I don't know, but also just trying what works for you, because what works for us may not work for somebody else. And I think it's important to kind of try everything and see what's the best fit for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And in
And we're still
terms
going through that.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's all a learning process. Yeah, it
Mhm.
sometimes can be overwhelming, but there's more resources than ever before for up and coming musicians and artists, which is really cool. And now, especially of course with the internet, we met over the internet. Shout out the
Yeah.
internet, right? What a thing. What is it,
Yeah,
right?
What a thing.
And that's how you meet. That's like the new A&R now. Social media can be that and connect people more than ever, which is great.
absolutely.
How do you run your music business? So now there's always talk about when you're an artist, when you're a musician, you're running your own show, you're running your own music business when you're starting out. You're doing the role of a record label to try and build your foundation. So, Desperate Electric, how do you run your music business?
I mean,
We we take a super hands-on approach to everything
yeah,
we do,
we do.
and we do everything ourselves. We do all our own booking. Ben does all of our accounting, all of our finances. I do all of our marketing and social media. We do all of our recording production. At this point, we do everything, and I think it's really important to. We've always um, we've always tried really hard to treat it like it's somebody else's business.
Yeah, that's great.
When you're working for yourself, it can be really easy to be like, "Oh, I just don't feel like doing it today," or like, I don't feel like doing X, Y, and Z, or we can push this to another date. Whereas like if we were recording another band in our studio and they scheduled time, we would stick to that. Or if you're doing accounting for another business, you got to do that, every month. And so really trying to treat it like somebody else is your boss that isn't you, to stay on top of things and
Whatever you need to be accountable.
yeah, yeah, hold
Like
yourself
Oh, yeah.
accountable and view it, it is your business and you have to treat it as such if you want it to be that.
Oh, 100%. That's a great point. Competency in any professional pursuit is really important. And if you're a music artist, you need to look at it as a business in some aspects. And that's a great point. Kind of stepping aside, not having any personal bias, and treating it as if you're running someone else's music business or helping another artist with their career. And that
Yeah.
helps you stay productive and that helps you just keep moving forward. That's a great point.
Yeah.
You guys have a new single coming out Friday. You have the pre-save link available now in your bio and all your socials. So let's talk about that single. Let's talk about when did that song first come into fruition?
Um,
this one's mostly Katie wrote this one, really.
yeah, I wrote probably right about a year ago.
Yeah.
I wrote it right about a year ago, and um I was just kind of going through some personal stuff, and I started when during Ben has always been kind of more I would call the primary songwriter, but during COVID I really started writing a lot more, and kind of pushing my limits as a songwriter and trying new things. And the more I've I'm still like I'm not a lifelong bass player. I started playing bass just a couple years ago, and kind of writing more with that kind of skill in mind as well.
Hmm.
Um, and also just I don't know, pushing myself as a songwriter and writing more than I ever have. And we have a big piano in our living room now, and I was just, I mean, just trying to write a ton. Last spring and last summer, I was just trying to write a lot and see kind of what came out of it. And I don't know, this melody popped into my head one day, and Ben came home from work and I was like, well, I wrote this melody, but I like do not even know what chords would go under it. So Ben, we sat down and Ben figured.
That's one of my favorites. It's like a puzzle.
Yeah.
So I got to take these notes. She's singing. It's like, okay, how are we gonna
Yeah.
get these chords in there?
Yeah. And we wrote the chords, and then we like recorded the song like that night. We were so excited about it that we recorded like a version, just a really quick like demo of it like that night.
I mean, I think that stayed as the backbone. That is now going to be the release single.
Yeah.
And that shows the importance. That shows the importance of having some of your own home studio gear set up. You were able to just sit down together and get that idea out right away. You didn't have to wait.
Yep. I seriously, it was like that night or the next day we recorded basically everything I had written and all the ideas I had a bass line I wanted to flush out. And we recorded it and kind of let it sit for like 6 months and didn't really touch it. We were working on some other music at the time and some other projects. And then we came back to it. I mean, like 6 months ago?
Yeah, maybe
4 or 5 months ago.
4 or 5 months, probably.
And we rehashed some parts of it. We changed some things. We added stuff, and we really got it to a place that
it's probably one of the songs we've worked on the most individually.
Yeah.
As that song. Just like it's got some hours under its belt. You know?
It really went through a lot of changes and a lot of different iterations. And it's definitely it's a pretty different vibe, but I really love it. I hope other people love it. It's pretty unique, but it's all the elements that I love about like music, and also like playing live. And yeah, I'm really excited about it.
That's great. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear it. I'm sure all of your fans are excited to hear it as well. So last but not least, what is next for Desperate Electric? What do you guys have planned for the rest of the year? What big projects do you have coming up?
I'd say it's the new album and an album tour.
Yeah. We'll be playing some festivals this summer around Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, the Midwest. And then, we're releasing our next full-length album in September. And we're going to go on another kind of big old tour this fall. And we're excited to kind of get that all announced and, get a whole bunch of new music out there.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. Where can we find you on social media? Let the audience know. Where can we find Desperate Electric on all social media platforms? Let us know all of your handles.
We are at Desperate Electric on everything. Just one word, at Desperate Electric on everything. Just that's it. It's pretty easy. We're pretty searchable.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. Desperate Electric, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm excited to hear the new song. They have a new single coming out on Friday. Be sure to check them out on Spotify, Apple Music, and follow them. Check them out on all social media platforms. Guys, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Always good to chat.
Yeah, of course. Guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of Miltrick Media. I just sat down with Desperate Electric, a duo from Montana. Be sure to check them out on all social media platforms and on streaming services, and we will see you soon.